Hi friends, we are going to talk something new which has recently been announced by central bank in the month of June 2021. I'm sure a lot of you have read the article in the newspaper or maybe seen the circular also. But let's talk about what it is bringing up, especially for DPMS, which is dealers in precious metals and stone, and how this is going to impact maybe the due diligence, how the banks or the financial institutions are looking at, especially for people who are dealing with precious metal and precious stone. Although this guidance note provides a guidance for real estate also, but we are not covering real estate in this section. You may get a flavor of it, but let's focus something on DPMS section specifically. Now this applicability is coming up to all the national banks, branches of foreign banks, exchange house, financial companies, payment service providers, or licensed financial institutions, whichever category it comes into is part of it, including insurance companies, agencies, and brokers. So all these people who are part of licensed financial institutions are part of the applicability, and they need to look at specifically for DPMS is what we're going to talk about. Now, the regulation has given so many, or the guidance note has given so many aspects. I'm going to just touch across some small part. And this video is going to be very small, just to give you a highlight of what's coming up. I'll give you a link of the document, which you can download and read it in more extensive way. In this case, the CB UAE, that means Central Bank of UAE, has guided the LFIs to do some kind of a additional due diligence, especially on real estate and precious metal and stone. So that's a segment which is coming up. If you look at the highlighter point, in this case, it's very clearly said the CBUA does not expect, or it says it does expect that LFI understand the risk and take effective risk-based steps to protect themselves from abuse and from illicit actors and transactions. Now, what are the mitigating controls they are requesting or they are expecting the LFIs to take care of? The first, they are saying conduct an enterprise risk assessment. That is, you look at under the portfolio which you are managing, especially for dealers in precious metals and stones or real estate, what is the portfolio risk you have? Are you sitting on a higher risk of portfolio, or it's a moderate or low risk? Do your own assessment. So the assessment has to be done by respective financial institutions on the number of transactions they do. That can be based on the percentage or can be a geographic spread, how the entity is looking at. And below that, the very specific thing they talked about, look at the specific customer level assessment also. Now they talked about 4 bullet points. One is geographic risk, customer risk, and product and service and delivery channel risk. So these 3 are known factors which we'll look at. And fourth thing, which is quite interesting, being added as part of the control check or the mitigating risk, is check the control risk. I'm going to talk control risk, and I'm going to talk about all the 3 factors also in a brief way, so that we get to what we are looking at from there. Now, first thing, this you can see in our previous video also, we talked about whenever we look at an AML risk, we normally look at 3 factors. One, geographical location. That means from where these customers have a supply chain, either a customer side or a supplier side are dealing with. If it's a high risk geography, then definitely the position or the portfolio becomes a high risk portfolio. What are the products or services being offered? Just to give us typical examples, if you're dealing in a rough diamond, or you're dealing in a polished diamonds, or you're dealing in mined golds or a scrap gold, or you're dealing in bullion market. So all the product has a very different risk classification and need to be assessed very effectively. And the third one is a customer risk. Now this customer risk can be on account of politically exposed person, or any kind of a red alerts, or any kind of a alerts, or a media alerts, or any kind of a fraud known information which you know about a customer, that comes into play. So all these factors are broad factors we know, and we know based on this, you can categorize a customer as low risk, medium risk, high risk, or maybe prohibited also. So this is the thing which we discussed in our previous video, how this can be classified. Now, this is what the classification looks like. Now, this is a typical thing which we know, and all the companies, even in the DPMS, which are getting assessed by us, or where we are advising them, we are taking these 3 broad factors. Now, one additional thing which they added up as a control risk for licensed financial institution is a control risk function. Now, this is interesting, and I will recommend you to read this section very categorically, because this is where the banks or the financial institutions are going to come back to people who are into the DPMS or real estate sector also, but I'm going to talk about DPMS section. So here it says, licensed financial institutions should seek to understand the regulatory requirement in place for the customer, as well as how well they are enforced. Now, this is the section which is going back and talking straight away what the DNF BPs are supposed to act on. So DNF BP section or the guidance note, if you look from a DPMS perspective, it talks about what are the AML CFT preventive measures which need to be taken up. Now, if you're talking about preventive measures, we're talking about starting from a policy procedure. We're talking about how the due diligences are done. We're talking about how the control risk metrics is being developed by the organization. And we're talking about training also. So they're talking about a complete supply chain management, how it is being done and how transparently it is done. So far, when we do maybe an account opening or an annual assessment being done by the banks, they typically ask us a question, do you have a AML policy framework in place or not? And typically we give an answer as yes. Now we should expect that the banks may ask for the policy document also, and they may ask for an interview-based kind of assessment where they will look at how these are being enforced also. Now, this is a very big task which is being transferred, I'll say, or being placed as part of the licensed financial institutions to look how these are being enforced. So this is quite a tough section from a banks and financial institutions also, how they're going to implement it. I'm sure they are definitely gearing it up. They are definitely training their staff and resources also to look at the second part. So far, enforcement was typically, I will not say you will see for all the clients, but now this is a sector specific, and it's going to be very, very critical from a banks or the financial institution or even the exchange houses to see how these are enforced, what kind of a checklist, what kind of a check and balances they will also adopt to assess the DPMS. So that's a good point to look at, and how this is going to be evolved in the future. Now, if you look at the synopsis of the guidance note, we talked about all the specific points, but again, the highlighting point is similar, where they said the DPMS, it is there. The Ministry of Economy is a supervisory body. So they are supervised by the Ministry of Economy, and how this is going to be implemented, what are the implementation challenges which the DPMS are facing has to come up, and banks or the financial institutions are being tasked to see that their clients whom they are onboarding, how greatly they are equipped to handle any kind of AML CFT compliance obligations and requirements. So this is quite an interesting thing, and it's very important to see how this evolves as the time is very short for the banks to gear it up and the financial institutions to gear it up and see the compliance perspective. So that's a short video just to give you a perspective what is coming up. I'm going to put a link to the video and to the document so that you can refer the complete document and get the assessment whether you are ready to face the bankers or the financial institutions for the question which are going to come up very soon as part of the annual assessment, or maybe part of the trigger assessment also. So that's a time we need to look at how these things are being complied for. So thank you very much for watching this video. Do look at other AML videos also which are being updated. Maybe it will help you to gear up the information which we are sharing. Thank you for watching this video. I'm sure you must have got some insight on that, and details are available in the document, and that's a proof of pudding we need to look at. Thank you. Have a good time. Bye-bye.